Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to EIG's first in a series of webinars on blending new talent with an existing team. And we're focused this morning on integrated onboarding. We appreciate you taking the time today to meet with us and learn a little bit more about onboarding with our guest panelists. Sorry, got a pop up there, Christina and Jackie from Expressive Connections and Jackie from 7StarHR. This is the first of a series of webinars on talent management. The first one again on integrated onboarding. The second will be on addressing employee burnout. And the third will be increasing employee retention. We look forward to you participating in the webinar. Please do enter into the chat your questions and join poll EEB to answer the survey questions that we will have throughout the webinar. So again, today we have Jacquelyn Gernaey, CEO of 7StarHR. Jackie, a few words of introduction.
Sure. Hey, welcome all. I'm Jackie Gernaey. I'm CEO of 7StarHR, which I founded 12 years ago. I had a corporate history culminating with being a president of a 200 employee division of an $8.5 billion company. Upon helping them sell that division after 5 years, I founded a coaching and peer board company where over the years I coached business owners more than 10,000 hours. I'm part of the EIG network who is providing this webinar, and I'm looking forward to our conversation on this topic today.
Thanks, Jackie. Christina?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of what I'm sure is your very busy schedules to join us this morning. Like Jim said, my name is Christina DiBernardo. I am the founder and director of Expressive Connections Mental Health Counseling. We are a group private practice that provides mental health counseling services to individuals, couples, and families. We also provide community and corporate educational services, such like we're doing today. I'm very excited to be here. Like Jackie said, my career started about 10 years ago as a mental health professional. And 2 years ago, I started my own practice. And within 2 years, we have grown to serving up to 300 individual clients. And I have a staff of about 20 people. So I'm very excited to be here, share with you a little bit how we can provide integrated onboarding into all of your agencies.
Great. Thanks, Christina and Jackie, for your intros. I'll just do a short intro. My core belief is that everything starts with the employees. Any good company is going to have good employees first, and that starts with leadership on how you manage your employees. So it's all about people, and that's what will help your company grow. And that's what this webinar is all about, and bringing those new on board to your companies. With that, a little bit about the deliverables today. We're going to be focused on learning the best onboarding techniques, how to use artificial intelligence to accelerate onboarding. We'll look at some metrics to track onboarding success, and then we'll get into understanding the financial benefits of a good onboarding program. What is it worth to you, to the bottom line, and then what actions you can take now. We'll also have 3 case studies that we'll go into detail. But before we get into that, a little bit of background on the companies. Christina?
Sure. So again, what we do, we provide mental health counseling services to individuals, couples, and families. We're helping them build their resiliency, overcome stress, overcome burnout. Stay tuned for April. And dealing with lots of different diagnoses. We provide the individual services. We provide biofeedback and neurofeedback services as well, and community and organizational corporate wellness. My practice specializes in trauma-informed care, stress management, burnout, anxiety reduction, anxiety management, depression, depressive disorders, ADHD, and general life stressors and challenges. We work with organizations, nonprofits like Girl Scouts of America and Long Island Coalition Against Bullying, among many others. And we also partner with schools as well to provide mental wellness education directly to students at a younger age.
Okay, so I'm next. 7-Star HR is a full-service HR company providing HR support from hiring to termination to all size companies, whether that is supporting your current HR team, or if you don't have one, offering fractional support either on or off site, depending on your need. About 50% of what we do is hiring consulting at a fraction of the cost of using a recruiter, and with results 98% of the time in 45 to 60 days. And the other 50% doing HR consulting, from projects to working 3 to 56 hours per month, either on site or off site. In relation to our discussion today, we offer a customizable automated onboarding tool to get your employees to productivity quicker and integrate them in your team. And Christina's organization contributes to that onboarding.
Thanks, Jackie. Just a little bit of background of Enhance International Group. We're a group of 50 educators, consulting companies, and SaaS providers. And Jackie and Christina represent a good portion of our HR talent within our portfolio. When you look at your company, you're looking at how do you drive revenue. Everybody's looking, how are you going to drive revenue? And we also have an employment crisis if you're looking for talent, because there's very high turnover rates. People are leaving quite a bit. And looking at the bicycle slide here, your strategy, of course, is to drive your company along your vision and brand. And part of that vision and brand is, of course, having a solid integrated onboarding process to meet your company's needs so you can execute as you would plan to execute. So that's how everything fits together. Again, we have over 50 consulting companies that can help you on your way. Our agenda today is, first, we're going to be addressing onboarding challenges. Then we'll get into these 4 successful steps to get you going. We'll look at some metrics, and we'll have 3 case studies. And then how do you link employee retention to the bottom line? So what is it worth to you to retain an employee? Some interesting stats to close out the webinar. With that, we'll get started on addressing onboarding challenges. And we found this stat from the Brandon Hall Group. Organizations with strong onboarding process improve new hire retention by 82% and productivity by over 70%. So those are pretty significant stats, especially in this time of where we're all lacking strong talent and retaining them. So, you know,
Jim, it's staggering.
it is.
It's just staggering.
It is. I don't think it's been like this, at least in my career, where the turnover rate. So it used to be you would stay with a company for 25 years back when I was young in my career, let's say, but now people are staying 1 month or 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, and they have no problems finding new jobs. And hiring managers are still not getting it and are suffering because of that high turnover rate. And in many fields, it's very hard to find people. Any other comments?
You're right on.
All right, so we have a question here for everyone in our audience. If you can join poll EV /Jim DeVries 073 on your cell phone, just put that in your browser. And we're asking you to rank in order the importance, the top areas of onboarding. And we have confirming job responsibilities, meeting teammates' expectations, underlying the company's vision, providing training and job application tools, and completing hire paperwork. Those are some of the things. If you have other things, please do enter them in the chat. We're just trying to get to the top ones that we thought might be interesting. So again, if you enter into the chat, you'll see a little, or when you enter into Poll EV, you'll see a little bar with a little up arrow on the left side or down arrow, so you can move these around. And it's generally easier just to focus on the top 2 or 3 and then fill out the bottom ones after that. So we're going to come back to this because it's kind of complicated to complete. And we'll come back to this at the end of this section. So please do fill that out. With that, we'll get started with Christina.
Okay, so we're going to start by defining onboarding and giving it a clear definition. The importance of giving anything a clear definition, as we will reiterate multiple times throughout this webinar today, is that oftentimes we don't really clearly define anything. And usually what happens with that is we make assumptions, and it leaves room for misinterpretation, a lack of clear expectations for what is to come from what we're trying to accomplish, and a disorganized process or action plan. So we start today by defining exactly what onboarding is. And onboarding is the process of integrating a new hire into the structure and culture of your organization in order to shape them into a productive member of your team, whatever that needs to look like for you. Some key components of this is to automate your onboarding process, set up a system that essentially runs on its own after a time, and customize and organize this process by job description. Not every role is going to require the same type of onboarding process. Yes, paperwork is needed across the board, but bringing on an entry-level employee versus bringing on a new senior manager, the process is not going to look the same. So it's important to differentiate those things and take into consideration the skills and learning styles of your new hires. Are they visual learners? Are they experiential learners, auditory learners? Getting a sense of who's walking through your door and what's going to be the best way for you to set them up for success is essential in defining and creating your onboarding process. So some really important statistics. I know we went over one so far, but in order to understand what works when it comes to onboarding, we need to understand the potential outcomes of both ineffective and effective onboarding processes. And so I want to encourage everybody to consider what their onboarding goals are when they're bringing on new employees and what your desired outcomes of the onboarding process needs to be. Part of that is going to be, what are your priorities when it comes to the onboarding process? Is it organizational loyalty? Is it productivity? Is it someone's ability to learn very quickly? Is it the employee's satisfaction or integration into company culture? Considering all of these things is incredibly important. So 88% of US employees believe that the company that they work for does not have a satisfactory onboarding process. That is a huge number, 88%. An unsatisfactory process might look like disorganized. Maybe it looks like a one-day process of, here are your keys, here are your passwords, and here's the paperwork that we need you to fill out. Now go learn everything on your own. But regardless of what the process looks like, almost 90% of people are unhappy with what the process looks like.
That old, Christina, that old throw them in the deep end of the pool and see if they swim.
The trial by fire, as it were. And hey, sometimes maybe that works a little bit, and in certain circumstances that might be necessary, where you put an employee through a particular process and see how they do. But in order to set somebody up for success, you need to have a structured training process. So with that, 59% of employers believe that having a structured onboarding process is instrumental to their organization. And when they have that process, there's a 50% increase in productivity achieved by organizations as a whole. 33% of employees resign within the first 90 days. So Jim was talking a little bit about that before, and a question that I often get is how much of that has to do with the age of new hires. And as a younger person on this panel and in this room, I know that there is some maybe judgment and stigma around younger people coming into the workforce and maybe having certain expectations. However, what we've found in our own research and looking into things is that this percent is not age specific, that this is more indicative of disorganized processes for onboarding and training rather than the age or even experience level of a new hire. 38% of organizations lose over 50% of their new hires within the first 18 months. So 33 within the first 90 days, and then an additional 38% within the first 18 months. That is very high. So when looking at these statistics, think about what it costs you to onboard somebody new. What does it cost in training? What does it cost in getting them connected with the benefits packages that you offer? What does it cost to create new contracts with your legal team or your accounting team? These costs are something we can't ignore. 95% of employees who are retained after the first 3 years due to well-structured onboarding programs. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those programs can look like later on in the presentation.
Thanks, Christina. Very informative. With that, we go to another survey question. What are your top onboarding challenges? We see we have a few folks entering some ideas here, and I'll turn it over to Jackie or Christina to make some comments of your observations.
So getting the onboarding set up, that is, of course, planning. And the thing is, if you use automation, you can get some help in that. It is an investment of time, like any kind of investment, to save you time in the future. You need to invest that time. So customer management during onboarding, and this is always an issue, again, people who are thrown in and said, okay, deal with the customer, this customer or that customer. And the customer may not know that this is a brand new person. So, that needs to be managed so they know what's going on. Disruption to work completion, many times what happens is that I see when we're doing a hiring process for someone is they say, shoo, I got them hired, now I'm done. No, you're just beginning. You do need to do this. And again, I'm going to talk a little later about some of the things you can do to help plan this. Cultural alignment. Christina, what do you think about that?
Cultural alignment is very important, and it is a bit of a challenge. When you're hiring somebody, more often than not, you're thinking about, can they perform the tasks of the job, not necessarily what is the personality of the person who is about to enter into this organization. And so dealing with conflicting personalities can be a challenge that you're not necessarily always prepared for, but it is very important. And so during the hiring process, during the interview process, thinking about what kinds of questions you can ask or what kinds of prompts you can give to get a sense of a person's character might be a way to combat some of that. And of course, there's always unknowns. People put their best face forward when they're coming in for an interview, but maybe having a 90-day probationary period during that time where you're assessing not only the skill set of this new person, but also how well they fit into your organization and the culture that you or your team have worked very hard to create.
I'm going to be talking about the aligning of expectations and achievements expected from a productivity standpoint as we go forward. So I'll make sure I point that out.
Yeah, and I would encourage everyone, if you have other challenges, to enter them into the chat, and we'll get to them as we go throughout the webinar. Thanks. Excellent feedback there and discussion on some of the top onboarding challenges. With that, Jackie, well, we put together top 7, so here we go.
Okay, so today we're going to dive into the 7 greatest onboarding challenges faced by companies. If we were in person, I would give you each a set of faceted bug glasses. I don't know if you remember those as kids, that you put them on and you look like a fly or whatever with all the facets. And then I would ask you to put a puzzle together with them on. And this is the view that all new hires have. What is clear to you is not clear to them. So without a structured onboarding process, new hires can feel lost, disoriented, and it's really having a well-defined onboarding process is crucial for organizations to establish the clear steps and milestones to guide employees through their integration into the company. So it talks about training here, and I do recommend buying these bug glasses and giving them to your managers and teams and using them to help train about onboarding. It's just such a great visual to everybody. And I've heard in companies where we've done this, they talk about, oh, they have the bug glasses on. Yes. So they know exactly what's going on. I've seen time again that sigh, as I said, of thank goodness that's done at the end of a hiring process. But remember what Christina said, the definition is in 2 words, integration and productivity, both of which, with help, ensure your new hires are not going to be one of the 2 turnover statistics Christina discussed. You spend a lot to hire them, so you want to keep them. Given we can now see through their bug eyes, we need to set incremental goals, track progress, and give them feedback so they feel they're accomplishing what they should be, whether on-site or remote. We can make onboarding easier and less time-consuming for our hiring managers and new hires by investing in AI and automation to mitigate so many of these challenges. So here is our agenda that we're going to follow to help you put a good onboarding process together. Once we do that, we're going to talk about what success looks like, a few case studies showing others' success, and link the retention achieved by good onboarding to the bottom line for your business. So there are many pieces to onboarding, but the task can be categorized into 4 major steps. Pre-boarding, which a lot of people talk about is just, I've got to get their desk ready, I've got to get this and that ready. It's way beyond that. I believe all the documents that need signing should be done in advance of the first day. I-9s, W-4s, and whatever the legal things are in other countries, handbook acceptance, insurance setup, and others depending on your industry. When a new hire arrives, they are excited for the opportunity you gave them. Putting them in a room to fill out paperwork, which could be done in advance, is not the first day they were dreaming of. So try to get that organized. Review of what they're going to be doing, understanding how they're going to accomplish their job description, and understanding how they will know they are doing a good job and thus feel good about themselves while wearing the bug glasses is really important. If you don't have a buddy system, so they can ask someone the dumb questions, you might want to put that into place. A buddy is not the same as a mentor. Assigning socialization to team members, lateral people they will be working with, people who will work for them is really important. Not all of onboarding socialization should be the responsibility of the hiring manager. You can have a new hire pizza party, or if virtual, have a game time where the new hire can interact. You don't need to make sure you need to make sure the new hire has all the things they need to do their job. Can't get into the software, computer doesn't work, nothing for them to do. All of these types of things are really frustrating when paired with the fact that they have those bug glasses on and don't know who to go to get these annoyances fixed, is not giving them the first impression you want.
So Jackie, we just got a question in and
Yep.
it's asking about how often should you be checking in on your employees? You got new employees. How often should you check in, and what should that check-in look like? Is it just a come by and say hello, or is it bring them in the office? What does that check-in look like, and how often should it happen?
So, and I'm going to talk about the process on the next slide, I think, but I believe the first 5 days that they're in, they should have goals for that. They can be different kind of goals, like find out where we eat lunch, or be able to log into your computer and access this and that software, those kind of things. But at the end of each of those 5 days, you should check in. And it can be a very quick walk-in, say, how are things going? How are you doing on your checklist for today? And again, then that's the first 5 days. Then I suggest for the next 3 weeks, which would take you through the month, again, at the end of each week, you check in. You should have things that you want them to have accomplished. And the reason, again, is, as I said, for this, so they feel good that having those stupid bug glasses on, they're not feeling like they're really in control of their job, but they are accomplishing the things that you want them to accomplish. And each company is different, but I would take them through the first 6 months on a monthly basis to doing that. So we have something that we use, which is called an HR MRI, which we give to all of our prospects and new clients. And one of the first questions is, do you have written vision and values? But having them is not enough. A new hire needs to understand what their role is in achieving the vision. You may have heard about the senators who visited NASA and came across a handyman. And when they asked him what he did, his answer is, we're putting a man on the moon here. He clearly knew the vision, and keeping small problems at bay was his role in getting the man on the moon. do your employees know the vision and their role in it? Doing this prep for onboarding, I suggest you prepare the 1 to 5 day expectations, which I talked about in the question. Do the same with goals, not daily, but weekly and through 6 months. Once they start, check in on the last day of each week and give them feedback. And the other thing you want to do is ask them, are there any roadblocks? Is there anything preventing you from accomplishing this?
Thanks, Jackie. I think I do see a question is when does it onboarding start? It's kind of
So onboarding starts in the hiring process, because you want to set the expectations. You want to sell the fact that you have a great process. They're going to be trained. They're going to, do all this. And again, before the first day, they are going to get materials, either to training materials. It might be we use Zoho as our CRM, and we always, if we hire someone, send out the videos so they have some feeling about Zoho. So you can do all of those things in the hiring process and before they come on day one.
I would like to
excellent.
add to that as well. I've worked with several people who have not taken jobs because their interview process was unclear and potentially disorganized. The interview is where onboarding starts, because even if maybe you don't hire that one person, somebody that you're interviewing, hopefully you are going to be hiring. And during that interview, making your company's mission and vision very clear and the values very clear is important to give a new person the opportunity to even decide if they align with what your company is trying to achieve. You want to find somebody who aligns with what you're trying to do, but they are also trying to find an organization that they can align themselves with. And so if it's a mismatch and that's not made clear, you might be bringing somebody in who just simply isn't a good fit for the most neutral of reasons. And so that interview is where this needs to begin, and where you as the interviewer probably should get very, very clear on what it is you want to convey when you first meet somebody.
I think the other thing, Christina, that you said is there are many sites that will do reviews of your company on your hiring process. And if you don't do a good job at onboarding, those reviews are going to hurt you in getting other new employees.
Yes, people talk. And depending on the industry that you're in, the world is very small. And so if your organization is organization A and you've got two people looking for very similar roles, well, don't go to organization A. They don't offer this, or they didn't make this clear. People talk. So it goes both ways. So if you've got a bad interview with somebody, you might say to a colleague, ooh, if this name comes across your desk, err on the side of caution. Other people looking for jobs will do the same thing, both in formal platforms like Jackie's mentioning, but also just in the communication sphere that exists. And everything is online now, social media too. You got to be careful.
Yeah, it is brand. It gets right to the brand of your company, who you are and what you're about. So
absolutely.
And it all affects the bottom line, because the longer it takes you to fill an open position, it goes straight to the bottom line. And setting clear expectations, and making sure you answer the questions. Sometimes the potential new hires, they have questions, but they're never answered because it's company policy not to answer those questions, or you don't have that answer. By ignoring that, you may lose that employee because they don't feel like they're being heard. Not, if they're not being heard in the hiring process, then they probably say, well, why am I going to join this company?
I think one of the worst onboardings I experienced, and we're a hiring company, we hired this, what I call a unicorn, somebody that is very, very hard to find.
Mhm.
And first 3 days, they sat him in a corner and gave him blueprints and said, just read these. And at the end of the 3 days, he quit.
Sure.
He walked out, and long gone is my parents' generation that you never quit a job until you have another one. That
Yeah.
isn't what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
Especially for unicorns. Yeah.
Especially for unicorns, yes. And
Yeah.
a domino effect too is when you have somebody like that who quits after 3 days, or a process like that where the result is somebody leaves or resigns within those first 90 days, coming back to the previous statistic, where does the responsibility of what that person was supposed to do, where do those responsibilities fall? It falls on your other staff. It falls on your other team members. So the more difficulty you have bringing on and retaining new people, the more pressure you're putting on the people who have been existent within your organization. And after how many times of that process not succeeding, will that person or those people start to question their loyalty to the organization? So this doesn't just affect the new people, the process that we're talking about doesn't just affect the new people that you're considering to even bring on to your organization. It affects the existing team members as well, more drastically than you might think.
Absolutely. And our conversation here, I think, aligns well with, some of the top areas that folks are seeing, confirming the job responsibilities, setting those expectations, meeting teammates, understanding the culture of the organization. A lot of these same topics, it seems to be pretty aligned. So there's a question in the chat. Does good onboarding process also discover if you have made a mistake in whom you've hired? Flip it around.
Well, generally, I think, and this is off topic, but I certainly deal with this. The first thing that you should do is benchmark the job as to the behaviors, the motivators, and the soft skills that the job requires, and the hard skills. And you should do some assessments on them so that it's not perfect, but so that you have the best chance possible of getting someone in. And I had one person that took through everything, even the behavioral style, and everything seemed perfect, then did the hard skill testing. She was at the 5th percentile. That's bad, the bottom of being able to use Word and Microsoft. And I thought, you don't have to be a genius at it, but got to be beyond the 5th percentile.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do the best you can in your hiring process to make sure that there is a cultural fit, and then there is a task fit. And remember, people usually hire for skills, but they fire people because of the attitude and soft things, right? So do the best you can to help prevent that.
I'm in the medical field, so I'm used to saying nothing works 100% of the time. And there's some truth to that, but all of what we're talking about today also will require from you in implementing these things some trial and error and figuring out the best way to implement some of what we're talking about into the culture and structure of your organization. And so a good onboarding process using assessments and things like that Jackie was just talking about can hopefully help you weed out some of the candidates that aren't a good fit, whether we want to call them bad or inappropriate for the job. But like Jackie said, what are the essential behaviors and skills that this person needs to have, down to what kind of communicator are they? Are they an analytical communicator? Are they more passive? Are they more directive? What kind of person needs to fit in what kind of role? If you're hiring someone, say, for a call center, you maybe don't want somebody who is too analytical and who's not going to play a supportive role when addressing concerns of your clientele, but you also don't want that person to be too passive where they're just going to potentially get yelled at on the phone and not be able to resolve the issue that your client or customer is experiencing. So down to the nitty-gritties of what you need for any new person, for any new role that's coming into your organization. So that should help you weed out what doesn't fit.
Thanks, Jackie and Christina, for those great insights. Great discussion. With that, we're going to move on to metrics, and Christina will lead this section.
Sure. So if anybody has ever heard of SMART goals, that is an acronym. The M in SMART goals stands for measurable. So how do we measure the success of anything that we are trying to do? And so we've broken this up into 3 different categories, starting with manager performance metrics. So we have to identify how well our management is performing in the hiring and onboarding process. How well are they training the new people that they are put in charge of? How often or how well do they retain the talent that is put in their charge and in their care? How well or how satisfied are employees with the management style of this individual or these individuals? Are they checking in with who they report to, as well as the employees that they manage and they train? How often are they having these check-ins? How does that feedback play into the success of how a new person is being trained? If they are tasked with showing a new employee a software system that is unique to your organization, and they just tell the new hire, play around with it and you'll figure it out, that is no way to set somebody up for success. Coming back to the bug glasses, the manager who's maybe been using that software program for maybe years, maybe a little less, can play around with it and just, oh, this is super easy and very user-friendly. But anybody new who's never used your unique software program is not going to have that same perspective. Employee performance metrics. So how are they making progress in their training? How are they making positive contributions to the work environment? What is the quality of their work in terms of both soft and hard skills that Jackie was mentioning before? Part of essential training will look like setting really specific milestones. Jackie mentioned before, within the first 5 days, there should be really specific, well, and longer than that, but within those first 5 days, sign onto your computer, sign in and get all of the passwords that you need for all of the softwares and resources that your organization uses. Meet your buddy. We'll talk about buddy system, or we'll call back to buddy system, I think, in the next slide. Meet your buddy and get acquainted with them. Get a sense of where everybody goes for lunch, things like that. How are they integrating? And then shared metrics. So between both the manager and employee and what they are doing, what is the time to productivity? How long does it take a manager to help a new employee and that new employee to help themselves become a productive member of your team with the specific tasks that are assigned to them? Again, those check-ins. So those check-ins are really important. And somebody asked the question before, I believe, how often you should be checking in with somebody. And part of that might depend on what makes the most sense in your organization, but using the framework of checking in within that first week, within the first month, and then in those first 6 months, having a structured and mapped out times for formal meetings between the manager and the employee, as well as maybe the person who hired that employee, just to make sure that things are going smooth, give them the opportunities to both ask questions and receive feedback that is both positive and encouraging, but also not as positive. And we need to address these things that you're doing incorrectly and take the time to fix those and rectify those mistakes. But how often are you doing that? So within those first 6 months, there should be structure there, as well as, popping into someone's desk and saying, hey, how's it going? People appreciate that. They appreciate knowing that they're being thought of. And those pop-ins also encourage a culture of support that, you know what, if I do have a question, I can knock on this person's door and say, hey, I don't understand how to get from point A to point B. Can you sit with me? Can I shadow you? Or can you provide me some resources to help me understand this? So some actions that you can start to take right now, define your performance expectations, define what you need from each new person given the role that they are coming in to assume, creating a timeline for those expectations and for those goals, providing the necessary information, resources, tools, training materials, whatever that looks like for your organization. Maybe you have training videos that you can create or are already created that they can watch. The handbook should have that mission statement, those values, as well as those mission statement and values reiterated in other forms of documentation, whatever is needed to train that person. Again, coming back to committing regular check-ins, I think we're beating this one to death a bit, but I don't think we can say it enough how essential those check-ins are, and making sure that that person feels integrated and supported in a new environment. Providing feedback and addressing concerns. Oftentimes what I hear is, I'm only being criticized for the work that I'm doing incorrectly or areas for improvement. I'm never being told what I'm doing well. And I know a lot of organizations who adopt the no news is good news mentality, and no news is not good news. You've got people who are wondering if all they receive is negative feedback. I work with kids, so I'm gonna kind of bring that in. If you have a child, if you are a parent, and all you do is tell them the bad things that they do, they are going to start to believe that they are a bad kid. And I know we're talking about adults here who have a maturity to know that that's not true. However, when all we hear are negative things, we do start to associate with those negative things more often than we associate with the positive things. That is just the way that the brain works. Assigning a mentor or buddy. So as Jackie mentioned before, a mentor and a buddy are not the same thing. A buddy is somebody who is equal to a new person in terms of their job description and maybe the roles. Somebody who's been doing the job for a longer amount of time, who can maybe answer questions on a more regular basis than, say, a mentor or manager. And a really cool thing about the buddy system, and a really good way to integrate learning, a full solid cycle of integrating learning. One of the best ways to learn is to teach something. So if you assign a buddy, and that buddy is somebody who's been there for, let's say, a year or longer, I would also categorize what you would need or what the qualifications of a buddy would need to be. So maybe it's somebody who's worked there for at least a year. But really completing the learning process. They've now been trained. They've learned how to do the job function that has been assigned to them. When they then teach it, it not only helps them re-solidify what they've learned, but it really locks in how they do this job and then how they show that to somebody else. It's a very strong learning process. Assigning a buddy also encourages team integration. That buddy can say, hey, we're all going to lunch right now. Let's go to lunch. Or if you've got a primarily remote infrastructure, that buddy can be the one who's messaging them and saying, hey, I hope you have a really nice day today. Or how was your day at the end, closer toward the end of the day? And you start to develop, yes, professional relationships, but also the personal side to those relationships as well.
Thanks, Christina. We do have a question in here for both of you. Are there resources on how to set rational timelines, or is it trial and error?
So generally, you put down, as Christina said, what you want to accomplish. You know, the best laid plans, what is it they say, man plans and God laughs. And so it is somewhat trial and error. And you're going to have different things come up that may not in month 2, that maybe you have to do for month 3, etc. So once you have it, each time you hire into that position, you can kind of streamline it after someone's gone through the process.
And maybe AI will help.
Yeah, and yeah. So
I'm sorry, Christina. Go ahead.
I was going to say, calling back to the slide on metrics, this is also where you can really get a sense of what that trial and error process looks like. So let's say, again, calling back to a specific software program that you use in your organization. How long has it taken past new hires to get comfortable with that software program? Does it take a month? Does it take a week? Does it take 3 months? So using that as a benchmarker too, and calling and using those metrics is going to help you in the long run set up for success so that you can determine what those milestones should look like. If average, it takes a month for somebody to learn the new software program, but you've hired somebody and they're in month 3 and they're just not getting it, it might have more to do with the employee than your process.
Thanks, Christina. That's great insight. So AI, yes, AI can participate in onboarding. I think you need to understand if you don't use it and you want to implement it, remember your culture is going to affect the implementation. And once implemented, AI is going to affect the culture. So you've got that whole thing going on. AI, as it says here, can help get your new hires 80 to 90% of the way to proficiency through training, through question asking and answering. And it allows assignments to be made to new hires based on where they are skill-wise. It can be the buddy, if there is no buddy, in that they can ask the AI all the questions that new hires don't ask because they don't want to feel dumb. Okay, so for leaders, it can not only do the check-ins, but it can also do the tracking of skill learning and make adjustments based on performance. AI enabled systems are easy to empower with predefined instructions for helping new employees understand the company's processes, and it makes the training more efficient. AI and employee onboarding also plays a vital role in empowering enterprises to attract the best talent for any vacancy, according to the set criteria. AI can give new hires a virtual assistant to do mundane tasks that most jobs have, which also increases productivity. And it can gamify learning to make it more engaging. So there's all sorts of things coming in AI. And we just want to make sure we're careful that we don't personally use AI. I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI. We don't want the bad and the ugly. We only want it to the good when it comes to dealing with employees.
Yeah, great summary on AI. If you want more information on it, please do reach out to Jackie and Christina on how to use AI in your workplace. With that, we're going to cover some case studies, and we'll kick it off with Jackie.
So we were working with a company that had 175 employees and they were a technology company. And it's fairly young. It was started in 2001, and they had high turnover rates. And that caused slow time to productivity because they were spending all their time training new people. And that meant they weren't achieving their revenue goals. So what we did was implement a relational onboarding process. And that's different. It's different than the payroll companies that just send out something and say, sign all these documents. That isn't it, but actually focus on building relationships between other people and assigning others in the company roles to play in the onboarding as well. And we set this up through one of our software programs to ensure tracking of the onboarding plan could be accomplished. And over a 6-month time period, this reduced turnover by 37%, which was a huge cost savings. And they saw their year after year revenue grow by 60% because they weren't spending their time onboarding new employees. They were spending it in revenue generating issues.
Okay, so a criminal defense law firm, their main goal was to bring on as many new attorneys and paralegals as possible. And their onboarding process was one day. Their onboarding process was essentially what we defined earlier as pre-boarding, where it was, here are the forms, here's your benefits package, and oh yeah, here is a stack of cases, get in there and get to work. And every single employee, after we assessed everybody and when we gave them an assessment for burnout, 100%. I said before, nothing works 100% of the time. This is the one time I'm changing that. 100% of new hires reported how burnt out they felt before the first year, and most of them left before a full year even completed. And so after implementing an onboarding process and a retention program that focused specifically on burnout reduction and stress management and slowing things down in order to get these attorneys and the paralegals who assisted them up to handling the type of caseload that the partners wanted them to handle, new hire turnover rate fell to 15% from an unbelievably high percent. Integration satisfaction scores rose to 92%. Productivity levels increased significantly, and burnout was down from 100% to 22%. And most new employees wound up staying past the 2-year mark rather than leaving before the first year. So the sustainability of growth for this firm, which was their main goal, they were actually able to achieve by simply changing their onboarding process.
Very impressive case studies. I'll throw one in. This is with a Fortune 1000 company, old company. They had a startup division that was established in the year 2000. They were looking for a succession planning process because they were growing fast and they were actually lacking some of the skills that they needed and lacking the talent. So again, it was a first of a kind new business, high growth rate, onboarding training duration was too long to bring people up to speed. So what we did is we changed the onboarding process, boosted it with more mentors and buddies throughout. And we also created a succession planning and a process that was linked to the demand planning process, because you need, in order to scale, you have to make sure that your number of employees matches the demand requirements. So by doing that and training managers to be trainers of the employees, to mentor them, many of the things that we talked about today, we were able to decrease that onboarding time of full proficiency that was sometimes taking 5 to 8 months and we got it down to like 6 to 8 weeks, at the highest 12 weeks for fairly complex processes. And then we were able to increase the employee satisfaction scores from 92 to 90 or 72 to 95%. And then our customers for this particular areas, they manage suppliers and customers. And by aligning this is how you affect the top line, because once we didn't have those gaps in shortages of employees for our customers and carriers, our scores went up dramatically there, which then drove in more and more business. And then one of the other things is when I came in into this division, it was kind of like the black sheep division. It was not thought of very highly. And when I came out, it was one of the most sought after places to work, where people were knocking on the door before we had to beg people to join our division. And the CEO even came in at one of our meetings and it says, you took a business that we were going to shut down and we turned it into a leading, profitable, high growth business. So that's my story there. And with that, we're going to go into, well, what are some of the metrics that hit your bottom line? We talked about some of these, but I'll turn this over to Christina to lead it, and then Jackie to add in some comments.
Sure. So again, calling back to what are your expectations and what are your goals when it comes to the onboarding process, and what are your goals for your leaders, for your new hires, for your sales revenue, for the metrics listed here, for the brand value. And really thinking about what's important to you, what's essential to you, and working backwards from there. So backwards planning. What do you need? What do you need to do to achieve it? How are you going to measure it? And what expectations do you need to place on yourselves, on the leadership in your organization, as well as the new hires?
Sometimes I call metrics a dirty word with business owners, because they're like, I just want to get the work done. But metrics are so important. If you have any issue and you're not using metrics, and these are quite a few great metrics that you can use, you're not going to know whether you're achieving success or not. So that's my 2 cents. Absolutely everything Christina said. Figure out what metrics are going to drive your company to where they need to be, and start measuring. That's the start.
Start measuring that proficiency. How long does it take to have your folks to be proficient? And always try to shorten that. You never stop working on something like that.
Exactly.
It's not, we achieved 3 months, we're done. No, your next goal is 2 months, then it's 6 weeks, then it's 5 weeks. You got to keep working at these things, and you will see the results. People will be happier. You're empowering your people to make decisions.
People love to be A players. They want to do that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you share the goal with them and get them to participate in the goal and making sure we're measuring everything, it's a lot of camaraderie. It's really a drive to go forward.
Absolutely. With that, we're going to wrap it up. We will have another webinar on April 17th. We hope you can join us on proactively addressing employee burnout. The slides will be sent out in about a week with a link to the video. So we hope you enjoyed today's webinar. And with that, ask some closing comments from Christina. Your closing comments?
Thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day today. We hope to see you at the next webinar, or not see you, but experience you at the next webinar. And we hope that you've learned new ways to integrate new systems into your organization. And Jackie, Jim, and I are always available if you have questions or would like to implement some of the systems that we use and we offer into your organizations.
And my last reminder is when you finish the hire, you're not done. You need to have a process. And it generally, they say it's a 6-month process. And if you do that, it will increase your retention of employees quite a bit over the long haul.
Thanks, Jackie, and thank you, Christina, and thanks to everyone who joined today and participated in the chat and asked those very insightful questions. We look forward to joining in our future webinars, and have a great day.
Bye.